Hare Krishna. Welcome to today's interview with His Grace Sanaka Sanatana Prabhu, who has been serving in Iskcon Vrindavan since many years in many different departments. Goshala maintenance, repair and maintenance, and then kitchen, Gomata products, um, also in mail out. So Prabhuji has been involved in many different departments and is still contributing in all of them, but primarily on a day-to-day basis taking care of repair and maintenance. And since Iskcon Vrindavan is one of the major temples, so that involves a lot of repair on a daily basis actually. So thank you very much Prabhuji for sparing us some time for today's interview.
Hare Krishna.
So first of all, we would like to start by getting to know a little bit about Prabhuji's childhood. So Prabhu, where were you born and how was your childhood?
I was born in Essen-Werden, that is near Düsseldorf, and in 1966.
1966 in Germany,
In Germany, yeah.
Düsseldorf. So how was your childhood? How did you have Christian background or?
Yeah, when I was small, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather and my grandmother because my father was studying and my mother was working to finance my father's study. And I do remember my grandfather, who had been 7 years in a Russian war prison because he was taken as a war prisoner. So he had never seen his own children growing up. So when I was with them, he was very affectionate. And I did remember me reading there was a children version of the Bible, and he read that to me. Mm-hmm. And we were Protestantic, and later on I take what you could call the Christian type of initiation at some point in my youth. Not out of interest in Christianity, more because when you get through that ritual, then you get a lot of gifts.
So what did it actually mean? What happens in a Christian initiation kind of thing?
It was it was a course we had to take. I think around 6 months, and it was like maybe 4 or 6 hours every week. And basically, we were going to the Bible, to the Old Testament, to the New Testament, and different other Christian things, some songs. So we had to pass some tests where we had to memorize maybe some songs or something like that. And when that was complete, then there was a ceremony in the church, and we got blessed, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So, Pro, you finish your education also in Düsseldorf, or?
No, yeah, I was in a boarding school, and I kind of, after 10th class, I left school. I wasn't much interested anymore in further education. Mm-hmm. Then I did, to the heavy push of my parents, I started to study garden architecture, and I did that for some time. Then I got sick. I got a cancer. I did survive that very well. But already my idea wasn't to just work my whole life and wait for the pension. That wasn't going very down with me. So after that cancer, I had a good excuse, and plus my conviction that I can die any minute. What is the aim here? To go ahead and just work in something you don't want to do. So I became a punk. I started to had a different lifestyle then.
Mm-hmm. So you were still in the same town where you grew up, or
no,
you?
I traveled around.
Uh-huh.
I was living in Berlin. I was living in Düsseldorf. I was living in Göttingen. I was living in Hamburg. I was a traveler.
Uh-huh. So then, when was the first time that you came across devotees, or how did you get to know about Krishna consciousness in the first place?
It is a little unusual. Being a punk, we had a very alternative lifestyle. We had party every day. We were taking drugs and selling drugs, and we were good for nothing, doing little jobs sometimes to make the money. We were living in a house. Many of us, we paid a little rent, and it was very alternative lifestyle. So I had a good old childhood friend who was also living in that town. I was a stranger to that town. I was just living there. And one afternoon with his girlfriend, he said, "Hey, come by and let's have some magic mushrooms." So it's something like LSD in a natural form. We had plucked them earlier in the forest somewhere, and he had put them in the deep freeze. So he took them out of the deep freeze, and we went into town. We watched some movie, and I was in a very not so good mood. And then I've seen people eating meat, like a burger type of a kebab type of a thing. And seeing them, they looked like Rakshasas to me. And that's where everything started. And at that very moment, I decided I will never eat meat again in my whole life. Being on drugs, but even next morning, I stuck to that conviction. And from there on, everything changed. Within a week, I found out that all my friends are not my friends because, hey, it's my free choice, isn't it? I don't want to eat meat, but everyone was trying to force me, and everyone wouldn't accept why you're not eating. Eat that, what is this, that? I was very confused, and it didn't take long. I think a week after also I stopped drinking, which is normal in Germany. A little bit after I stopped smoking ganja, and then I cleaned up. I was living in a big mess, so I cleaned up my whole house, and I started jogging, and I think within 2 weeks I started only eating things which I'd cooked myself. And actually, in my childhood, I was remembering my previous life when I was smaller. And obviously, in the West, you can never express that. You don't want to look like a crazy person. But it was very vivid. It is almost like now I'm 55. I remember my childhood. So it is not that clear because it is long away, but it is as a reality. I know that was me. So that was very strong. And I had some mystical impressions also, what you call a déjà vu. And I had that multiple times, but one time I had it very strong. And I had a very clear realization that if I had dreamt something 1 year prior, and now I'm coming in this situation, and I know for I think a time period of 10 minutes, I was knowing what is going to happen next. And it was very specific, and it was very clear. So I came to the conclusion that there must be a higher power, and there must be something like karma, like predestination, how that would be possible. And then I really started to search what in our scripture we would say, search for the absolute truth. I was knowing there must be a real reality, and I wanted to find out what that is. And since I stopped all drugs and meat eating, and I was doing jogging and whatnot, my consciousness was becoming clearer and clearer. And then what you will do? I went to the Jehovah's, I went to the Christian church, I went to the Buddhist, I went to the Steiners, I went here, I went there. I read books, but it wasn't really satisfying. And earlier, when I had that cancer episode, I came along a book by one person who had researched people's past life experiences. And it was very scientific. With a notary even, he interviewed those people, and then they went to those places the people had described, and yes, and this town existed, this house existed, that person existed. So it had very much strengthened my faith in what I was remembering when I was small. So in that period, again, I came along one book from the same person, and then I started to get more fired up about that. Then I went, my mother went out of station somewhere. She wanted me to take care of her plants. She has a lot of plants, so I stayed in her place. And that was like the end of my material existence. I wasn't in a good mood there. And then I thought, let me go to Berlin. And I created the idea already, if Berlin won't work out, I'll go to India. I had no experience of India, but it was fixed in my mind.
So you had heard or read somewhere that in India you could...
No, nothing.
Nothing?
It came from inside. So when I went to Berlin, still in the afternoon after eating, I used to smoke one cigarette. I couldn't give up that one cigarette. And so I decided, now I'm going to Berlin, I'm going to fast for a week or 10 days, and I will get rid of that cigarette habit. So I went to Berlin, and I fasted. And then on Saturday, I had a job where you would carry an advertisement in the front and in the back. So on the main big shopping street in Berlin, on the Kudamm, you had to walk up and down. So on Friday, And I was fasted already almost 6 days, so I was very floating, very light. I was very relaxed. I met a devotee on the street, Bhakta Eric. And he did, in a sense, a mistake. He said, we are students. And that kind of shut me down. I didn't want anything to do with university, with scientific knowledge. I left that behind. And he showed me different books, Bhagavad-Gita, this, that. And I was friendly, I was fasted. I had nothing to do. My temporary home was maybe 5-6 minutes away from the place where we were standing. And I was polite, and at the end said, I'm so sorry, I'm not have interest. I didn't really look at what he was showing me because I thought it's something from the university. So when I started walking off, I guess Paramatma gave him an idea. And he said, hey, come back. I have something different here, something very mystic. I said, mystic, now we're talking. So I'm
that
back.
caught your attention, huh?
And he gave me the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, in German language, full edition, big book, and Radha Krishna and the Vishnu planets in blue and yellow. I thought, this is far out. So as bad as I am, I bargained him down. I think I gave him eight Deutsch marks. He was almost crying. So I took the book home. And I have to say, I opened the book, and I maybe spent 10 minutes. I was very well read. I read lots of books in my childhood. My mother was an intellectual, and I read a lot of books. So in 10 minutes, I figured out that is exactly what I was looking for my whole life. I figured it. I couldn't fully understand this Sanskrit, and it looked very different what I ever had seen before in my life, but little bit reading, I thought this is what I was looking for. Finally, I got my answer. And it came with a little card, and please come to the Sunday Sonntagsfest, to the Sunday program, and I thought, fine. So next day, Saturday came, and we were walking those advertisements, and I had made a friend, and we were walking together, and once a sudden the car stopped, and the devotees come out and started Harinam Sankirtan. I didn't know that it is related to the book. And Astarata Prabhu came out, Prabhupada's disciple. And it already changed me very much. The other fellow, we had walked together for 1.5 hours and had a conversation. After we had met, the devotee said, you gone crazy or what? And he just walked off. And then Sunday came, and then Sunday afternoon I went to the Hare Krishna temple, and they had kirtan, and that same devotee, Astarata Prabhu, gave a lecture. And one fellow stood up and said, hey, I'm Jesus. I have all the marks of Jesus. I'm Jesus. And I was impressed. The Swami just, Astarata Prabhu just looked at the fellow. This is fantastic. Why don't you just wait outside a little bit, and afterwards you bless us. Let us finish our conversation here. So he handed him very cool, and Jesus walked out, and as the show went on. And I was quite ecstatic in the kirtan, and I liked the lecture. And at the end, I wanted to just go home. And they had the Sunday feast, and they said, hey man, nobody can fast. This is not normal food. This is very special. This is Krishna's prasadam. And anyhow, they persuaded me. Finally, I broke my fast. And when I was walking home, I mean, it was just like an LSD trip. I was like floating to that. I was totally in ecstasy, I would say now. I wasn't knowing. I was just impressed what happened to me. And next morning I went, and they gave me a japa mala, and I started chanting 16 rounds, and it went on like that. And but there was some, I would say, I wasn't that German as the Germans in the temple. I was more free spirit, you say in English. And I could sense some politics and some tensions, and so a little bit materially I was set back. Even I had found what I was looking for. So maybe after 3 Sundays and me coming also under the week, they were showing a movie, an English movie, Krishna and the Land of Vrindavan. You've seen that? No. It's a short movie. It shows about Vrindavan, the Gurukul kids, the Goshala. It's an old movie. Later on Padayatra, I've shown it many times. I was showing it many times. So I didn't speak English, so somebody was translating it. But already while watching the movie, I made up my mind and thought if Krishna is in Vrindavan, before I join the sect, better I
go to Vrindavan.
I meet Krishna, and I can make my own impression. So after the movie, I told the devotees already, I think, and they all were saying, no, 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 you cannot go to Vrindavan. It's a very wild place. There's many different philosophies. You will get lost. You will get bewildered. It's very hot. They had 1,000,001 reason why they were thinking, I'm theirs, you know. They preached me, and now I should join their temple, and I will do book distribution for them. They had a plan. And that was most probably, I felt that, and I didn't want to. So I went back to Göttingen. And my friend had just inherited the house, and he had a small flat under the roof. And he said, hey, you can stay there. And I took a job in a supermarket which supplies supermarkets. And and I brought a Vedic cookbook with me. And that means if they have like a whole pallet of apples, if one apple is spoiled, they throw the whole pallet out. So there was one area where you could take everything away at the end of the day. So I took boga like anything, and I went home. I invited all my old friends, and every day I cooked prasadam. I offered it and fed them prasadam and preached. And I didn't really know what I really was doing, but it was very purifying. So after 3 months, I had a lot of money. I went back to Berlin, and I think I would have joined there in the temple, but Krishna kind of tricked me. On the way to the temple, I seen a travel agent, and I booked myself a ticket to India. So I had the ticket already in the pocket. So when I opened the door to the temple, I immediately felt the difference between outside. It was from that preaching and cooking, and I was somewhat purified and chanting. When I walked in this temple, that was like the spiritual world. So if I would have not had that ticket, they could have easily said, why don't you stay here? I would have said yes. But now I had the ticket, and my mind was somewhat set, and they started preaching me and like anything. And then I think Bhakti Bhushan Swami was there somewhere. They had some emergency in South Africa. He was going around, and so I given them half of my money, and then they left me alone. I paid myself out of the situation, and then stayed there a couple of days, and then my flight came, and I came to India.
So within like 3-4 months from not knowing anything to coming to Vrindavan.
Something like that, yeah.
Wow,
Maybe
that's pretty amazing. 6 months altogether.
Period.
That's very interesting. And you had not heard anything about Vrindavan or Iskcon before that?
No.
Or spiritual life?
In that time period, I went a couple of times. I have a farm there in Jandelsbrunn. I went to for some festivals, and I went 2-3 times with the devotees to Heidelberg. They had a festival there, so I got some exposure. I served one time Krishna Chaitra Swami. And he was the first one who put the finger on me and said, hey, Bhakta Stefan, now what? Was nun? So he really got me. I met Satyanandan Swami. He actually kind of predicted. He said, yeah, you're going to India. This is very good. Because first I had a plan with another person to walk to India. That was already in Berlin. My India idea was somewhat there. But this fellow he just blooped off. And so he already told me, hey, India is very nice. You can travel all over India. I'd done that when I was a new devotee, and I've been all over South India. So anyhow, then I boarded the plane. I came, and India I'd been in Greece, in Turkey. I'd traveled, hitchhiked all over Europe, but this was a total new dimension. And nobody seemed to understand my little English with a German accent, so I didn't. I managed from the airport to the. First, I had that plan. I was having a shoulder bag. I was thinking I can walk from the airport to Vrindavan.
So you landed in Delhi?
In Delhi. Yeah. So I had the map, and normally no big deal. I gone by walk and bicycle half over Europe, so it's not a big deal. I just jump and I locate the map, and I will manage. But in the second I came into the airport, I realized this is very different now. And when I came out, it looked like total unorganized.
Alien world.
I just couldn't. So I did the next best move. I asked how to go by bus to Vrindavan, and they said, okay, you take that bus from the airport to the ISTB, Interstate Bus Terminal. It started. Then the bus at the airport, they had to push start it. That was already quite a number. Even in Turkey and Greece, where things are not up to the mark, the buses would self-start. And then there was a hole kind of in the floor where you could see the street. It was kind of interesting. And at the ISTB, I already faced huge problem. It took me like 1 hour. Nobody was understanding Vrindavan. Just nobody was saying, yeah, Vrindavan. Everyone knows Vrindavan, but nobody knows where's the bus to Vrindavan. Then I developed an intelligence and thought, let me try Mathura. And that worked out then. The bus to Mathura, and they sent me to some counter. I joined the bus. And then when I came out in Mathura, then I couldn't... The bus stand, there was no bus stand. There was just a big place, and there wasn't tar or anything. It was all dust, and people were running, and vendors, and there was no more. I asked Vrindavan, Vrindavan, nobody know. Finally, one fellow said, Govardhan. You know, they're shouting, Govardhan, Govardhan.
Yeah.
Actually, it was Sanatan Goswami's disappearance day. So I said Govardhan and Vrindavan. The guy obviously just want to make a person. Yeah, come in, Vrindavan, Vrindavan. He took me in. And I thought, hey, in Krishna book, Vrindavan, Krishna is in Vrindavan, Govardhan. I thought it must be all one. So then the next real experience when the bus pulled into Govardhan, because Sanatan Goswami's disappearance day, there were millions of people. And they're coming from the windows, from the doors. Everyone came into the bus. So I just stood there with my shoulder back somewhere in the center, waited until it all was over, and then climbed out. And I was totally disorientated, so many people. And then some guy saw a business opportunity in me and say, hey, you want to go to Krishna Balaram temple?
Okay,
I
at
said,
least
yes.
something.
I spotted in 1 second what was up with the fellow, but I didn't have much other choices, so I went along with him. First he wanted to rent a tum-tum, private, to go to Vrindavan. Anyhow, that didn't happen. So we had to go back to Mathura. From Mathura, we said three-wheeler back to Vrindavan. And then when we were walking towards the temple, he started, oh, you, me, my family, very poor, you give me 300 rupees. So I already counted. The bus fare was like, I think, 1 rupee. So I understood 300 rupees is a lot of rupees.
Yeah.
It was like 10 Deutschmarks. And he was knowing it's not much money for the new guy. So he kept working, and finally I thought, okay, if that's what it cost, I gave him the 300 rupees. He brought me to the Krishna Balaram temple. And then I took a room in the guest house. On the way, he made me drink some water. So basically, I was like 10 minutes in the guest house, and the loose motion started.
Oh my God.
But I brought a nice bread, a full, nice German bread, and I kept it in the shelf, and I was thinking next morning, whatever happened, I will have a slice of that bread. So next morning, nighttime, I woke up many times, I was very sick, and next morning, finally, I thought, now I have a piece of that bread, and millions of tiny, tiny red ants were on my bread, and unfortunately also in my bread. They had eaten little channels in the bread. So I was like, no way. At this point also, I just took the bread. I was totally frustrated, and I spent 3 days. And on the 3rd day, I thought, hey man, why don't join the temple here? I had an interesting dream the first night. I don't want to cross the limit here, but it was very spiritual, and I was very inspired.
But that would be nice to know, if you can tell.
Nah, it's very hard to describe.
Okay.
It is. I felt like I'd seen Krishna, so it was something like that. I had dreams like that before, but that was very much more vivid. And
just experiencing his presence and that he is there.
Yes. Yes. And then on the 3rd day, I thought, hey, maybe I can join the temple here. So I met American Braj Bihari. He seemed to be the most normally approachable person. I said, hey, I'm here, I'm from Germany, I would like to join the temple. And he said, no, such a facility doesn't exist here. So I was very frustrated and shocked, and I was thinking, wow. So 2 hours later, I was going to the Mahaprasadam stall. Then Atmaram came by as a brahmachari that time. And his service was to catch foreign devotees and make them join the ashram. So he was 100% opposite now. He says, I figured him out in 1 second. He started, and hey, and you're staying in the guest house that costs money, and why don't you join the ashram? And I was like, really? That's possible? I thought we cannot join here. I played him a little bit because I realized, and then I said, okay, man, no problem. So he joined me. And then I was doing different services. I helped in, my first service was in Prabhupada Garden, because I said I had gardening experience. I had started studying garden architecture. I did not know what to say. I was a good for nothing before, and once I said, now they want me to do some work, so only thing I came up with gardening. But then when I came up that staircase, some 4 or 5 monkeys went for me, and I just came back. I said, I can't do that. I was even scared of dogs. What a speed of these big monkeys. It was a total new experience. Then they put me in the kitchen, and I made chapatis. And then from that heat, then I got sick from that, and then they put me with Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu.
Cooking
So
for the deities.
that was a very much better experience. He was talking to me, and we had interacting, and I bought him a cooker, and then he cooked for me every day some spiceless, non-spicy things. That was very nice.
This was in which year, Prabhu?
In 89?
In 89.
Yeah, I came in July 89. So then I stayed in the New Bhakta ashram, and even now I sleep like at 8, 8:15. Even those days I used to sleep at 8:15, 8:30 and wake up at 3 o'clock. So first I was with Atmaram for a week or 10 days, and then they put me in the New Bhakta program. But they came in late night and talking, laughing, joking, and many of them wasn't waking up for Mangalati. So at some point I said, hey man, this is quiet here now and this light is off. If not, I go ballistic. So somebody again turned on the light. So I had him on the neck and showed him my fist. So light went off. Everything was quiet that evening. And so next day, Sandipani Muni was the temple commander that time. So he took me in his room. And there was another devotee, Ekadasi Das, from South Africa, I think Nigeria. He was from Nigeria. He was a pujari that time. He used to bring Mahaprasadam every day. And we struck up a friendship, and he was guiding me. And he constantly told me about Padayatra and Rajmandal Parigrama. So when Kartik came, he just grabbed me and brought me. Lokanath Maharaj was in one of those guest rooms here, maybe next to Gopal Krishna Maharaj's room. He took me there and introduced me to Lokanath Maharaj. And I had been sick. I had malaria, I had worms, I had this, I had almost any possible disease which is possible. I got purified quite quickly. And everyone said, you cannot go on Rajmandal, impossible, you die there. But I was determined, and then I signed up for that, and I went there. And like a miracle, I didn't get any sick. I just got stronger by the day. And there I met another devotee, Upendra. He's American also, Brahmachari. And he preached me about Padayatra. So by the end of the Parigrama, I was fixed I will go for Padayatra. Then I went on Padayatra. I joined, first I went to Nagpur, and then Chandrapur. And near to Chandrapur, Iskcon has a farm, Chamosi. And the Padayatra was there. And from there, I started my Padayatra.
So for how long were you with the Padayatra?
No. Then I was altogether 10 years with the Padayatra.
Constantly traveling?
Constantly, yeah. Then from there we went to Mayapur. In Mayapur we did the first Navadip Mandal Parigrama. That was quite an experience. I had no idea about Mahaprabhu. I only had read the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad-Gita. I was totally Krishna focused. Even they had Mahaprabhu Panchatattva on the altar, and it was kind of foreign to me. So that was very interesting experience. And then from there we started. 10 years I spent on Padayatra. After 96 I became the Padayatra manager also. And I changed the whole program a lot. I made it very German and very efficient. We came #1 in book distribution, which was a big thing. Those days the Sankirtan newsletter was like the main focus of every temple. And I was directly fighting with my old temple, Berlin. They was #1 in small temple category, and we came #2. And then when Harikesh faced some difficulties, they lost enthusiasm, and then became #1. So I did that, and I think...
Till 1999, for 10 years.
1999. I think in 98, then I decided that, even that was a very strong brahmachari program, one devotee, Bhagavad Priya, was on Padayatra, and Bhakti Vaibhava Swami was his spiritual master. And he went to Mayapur. I usually stayed back to take care or repair things on the Padayatra. I was quite dedicated. And I think we were in Tirupati. And he came back and he said, I asked my spiritual master how to become a brahmachari. I said, I was here. And you know what he said? He said, you are a brahmachari or you're not. You cannot become one. So that kind of struck me very deep, because I was constantly engaging in service. So because if I would get lax and this type of thinking would start in my mind, I would get lusty desires and get disturbed. So other devotees would take rest in the afternoon. I'm not good in day sleeping, so I would constantly do something. So basically I was sometimes showing even the cinema at night, going up to 11:30, wake up at 3:45, do the whole day. So I kept myself constantly engaged, and whenever I would stop, I would just go to sleep. This was gone, but now I had done that for almost 9 years, and slowly my body and mind was wearing out, and I could feel I can't do that forever.
Yeah.
And when I sit down, that is not good for me. So I was searching for the answer, what's next. And when he came with that information, that struck me very hard.
So you made the decision that...
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought I won't win that battle, and obviously I cannot just become that, and I'm not that. So anyhow, I changed my clothes I didn't change much, I just changed my clothes for white. Some people were disappointed, but I just continued as it was. And then...
How did you meet Mataji, and how did you get married?
So... for feeding our bullocks, we used to feed the bulls with a mixture of wheat bran and dal skin and oil cake. And for that we had some big bucket, galvanized bucket, oversized buckets. And that buckets were manufactured in Chennai, but we used to buy them from a shop in Tirupati. So I went, because I was knowing the shop, and because I was wearing out, so sometimes for me to go somewhere and take a break was just, even I was the leader of the team, I used to take a break. So I went to Tirupati to buy these buckets, and when I was looking for the visiting card for the shop, I came along a visiting card for an astrologer, which I thought I had lost long back. So I noted that, and I went to buy the buckets. And then I had some advanced party work in Bangalore. I had to order some books there. And because we were traveling in Tamil Nadu, and then eventually would come to Karnataka, and so they had to, because we're selling books in very large volume, we had to always pre-order them, make sure they have enough. So I had to, Amita's son was a BBT in charge. So I went there. And almost I forgot, last minute I again seen that card, and I went to that astrologer. And
In Tirupati?
He told me that, yeah, your time is ripe now. You won't escape. That's just what I needed to hear. You won't escape. You can't escape that, whatever you try to do. And I had driven it pretty much to the end. I was pretty disturbed already. So then I met the astrologer, and he told me one thing. He said, when you see your wife, you will know that is your... He didn't say much more than that. He told me many other things, but basically that was the instruction. And I went back on Padayatra, life went on. And so we came to Karnataka, and I was supposed to... I was searching then to get married. I went to Pandharpur, to Solapur. I didn't get success. Then eventually had some advanced party work to do in Belgaum. So I went to Belgaum, and they had a marriage bureau, but it didn't look very promising. And then they sent me to a house program. One devotee I met, he said, you come to my house. I met my wife.
In that house program?
First time, yeah. She was a guest there, but I couldn't know that. She was serving the prasadam. I was thinking that is a person, but looking at the person who had invited me, I understood this guy will never give his daughter. It's an impossibility. So I got disturbed. I left it with that. Then I give class, and my wife was a present wife. She was again there. And then after the class, I got very frustrated. And there was a picture of Radha and Krishna, and I prayed like anything. I said, you give me an answer, take the desire away or do something. And in that mood, my wife came by. I went outside. I felt a little chilly inside from being not in a good mood. I went outside to sit a little bit in the sun. And there were steps, and my wife came up. And the day before, I had been to a preaching program in their village, actually. And
Okay.
I met the father also. I met her brother, and he said, "Hey, I have a sister. You can marry her, you know." And
okay.
then I met the father, and then the father and the son fought. The situation just turned sour, and we had to go from there. In the bus, he still said, "Hey, sorry, you know, we couldn't discuss about my sister." So, but that was so. She came up and said, "Hey, yesterday you been to my home." I said, "Yeah," but I remember her from that other house. And she said, "No, this was my house, and we have a river there." She said a couple of things which kind of make me click, and I said, yeah, so you're the daughter from there. And I said, "Okay." And then she became shy and took off. So I phoned the father and said, "Hey, I met your daughter. I'm interested." And he said, "Yeah, fantastic. No problem. Let's meet the astrologer tomorrow, and afterwards we can talk." So next day, we met the astrologer. He said, "You're meant for each other," and
So that was like within 3-4 days?
yes.
That's really interesting. So you became a devotee within 6 months, and you also got married within just 4-5 days.
Yeah, well,
I mean, like you found
yes,
found
that went like
found
that.
your wife. Huh.
So then I went back for Padayatras, and Padayatra we came to a village also. Actually, it's more interesting. Because one round around India prior, we had been to her village. I hadn't been there. I was doing something else. I missed out this couple of days when they were there. And her uncle has a Ram temple. They're from Brahmin family, so they own the Ram temple and the Shiva temple. So her uncle is a proprietor, and he was a host for Padayatra. He given us a place to stay, and he given us a boga and fed us. And her house was just up the street, not 50 meters up the street. And her father had come and bought from Upendra 3 small books. And he took them home. And her and her brothers, they were a little younger than the rest. The 3 older sisters was there, and they were very close, and they read the books. And from that, they became devotees. They read the books, and they went to Belgaum, brought a Gita, and changed the whole house, and they became devotees. So it's kind of a nice circle in a sense.
Yeah.
So then Padayatra we came there, and then I got married. Still, I kind of built
Immediately you got married?
No. I think that must have been after 3-4 months, after Chaturmas had just started.
So you went back on Padayatra, you were traveling, and then you went back.
Padayatra came there. I had
Again,
done advance parties there. Now Padayatra came to a village again, and then Padayatra came in Belgaum. And we spent Kartik in Belgaum. And then actually I prayed to Goni Tai one time, and they told me, "Hey, you just wait for the lady which will worship us." That was maybe a year prior. And that is an impossibility, because ladies never go on the Padayatra cart into puja. But because we were renovating the cart, the deities ended up in Belgaum on the altar. And my wife was doing deity backup service in the morning, and she was dressing the Goni Tai. It's kind of interesting. And so anyhow, then we got married, and after marriage, still I stayed in Belgaum, and I made a brand new Padayatra cart. That took me about 3 months. Very nice calf. We got done daily teak wood and rose. The whole frame the cart is still running. I'm married for 21 years, and the cart is still running as it is. It was such a nice quality production. So, and I brought that to Mira Road, and then my wife joined Padayatra in Mumbai, and then we shifted to Pandharpur.
Then you stayed in Pandharpur.
I stayed 5 years in Pandharpur. After 2 years, I came in charge. They made me the president, and then I started mail out there. Very successful. That place had never seen money, and once a sudden, checks were like piling on my table. It was a very interesting experience. The previous president had an office which was very bad in Vastu, and I made friend with Ravati Raman in Tirupati, and he gave me his visiting card. On the visiting card, he gave a small diagram what is good Vastu. So I changed that office. They had a go-down and the office, so I made the go-down my office, and the office my go-down. And then I put my chair and table, everything according to what
That small
on that
thing on
little
the-
diagram. And 2 days later, I got a phone call, and somebody, Satchidananda from Vallavidyanagar, rang me and said, "Hey, now you are in Pandharpur. I have faith in you. I've done a mail out, 50,000 letters to Pune and Mumbai, 25. So you will get some business return mail." And then just the checks start piling on my table. I hadn't done anything. And then I had brought the rubbish bin from the old office to the new office, and I looked in the rubbish bin. There was one, you get in India those pre-stamped postcards, where the stamping is like from the... And I picked out this postcard, and I'd called somebody, said, "What's written on the postcard?" And he wrote the postcard and translated me, "This guy want to join." So I said, "Write him back." So we written him back, he joined 1 week later. So I was very encouraged about the power of Vastu, I thought, wow.
Yeah,
So
just one small change and everything.
It worked out nice. Maybe my karma also, whatever. So then I was there, then I worked very hard, and we did a lot of money, and there was land court cases, a lot of work was to be done, and then I built a temple, we installed the deities, and then my wife left for the second baby. In between, I was in Vrindavan also. In 2001, we did the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad. And when we were preparing for the Kumbh Mela, we were staying here in Vrindavan. And after the Kumbh Mela, we were almost where we are now staying. I was staying in VIG, where's the temple room now. I was occupying that place. And the management asked me to keep staying, but
You had your service in Pandharpur.
It wasn't looking favorable to me that time. So I went back to Pandharpur. And after the deities were installed, my wife went for delivery.
She went back to her parents' house.
To the parents, the sister's place she went, near Maharaja's village in Palus, Maharashtra. And I was alone, and I became very thoughtful, and I was remembering Vrindavan. And when I installed the deities, I had Vrindavan in mind, but it wasn't exactly, I don't want to be offensive, it just wasn't giving the result I had longed for, whatever, deeper inside. And then I found out that Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj was the president, became the president in Vrindavan, and we had very good friendship from Belgaum, and he used to come to Pandharpur also regularly, and we met in Mumbai in the meetings. And I rang Sarvabhauma, we were good friends from Kumbh Mela, and said, "Hey, just check out what is the feel." And 15 minutes later, I had Bhakti Rasamrita on my small mobile phone. And he said, "Hey, you pack your bags right now. You don't spend 1 minute thinking. Pack everything, pack up and come here right now. I want you here. I need you here. Please come." But it was not like that. I was still wondering. And some politics already happening. And Krishna arranged more politics happened. And in the name of the politics, I could say, "Hey, look, I can't do that. I'll resign from here." And Radhanath Maharaj kind of blessed me. Lokanath Maharaj was very upset.
Yeah, of course.
We were always fighting in our way of management, but he never got angry on me. But when I left, I think almost 1 year he didn't speak with me because I had done so fast, so much development.
Yes, definitely. So for them, it was like a loss to lose such a...
It's whatever. I have set up the system, the same system. They still do the mail out. They're swimming in money from that mail out, and it's not further developed. But whatever I've set up, it is all still there. They build a basin gut. Okay, fair enough. And then we came here.
So that was in the year 2005. And then since then, you decided to just stay here.
Yeah. And interesting enough, when Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj asked me what you want to do, I said, "I want to do repair and maintenance. This whole place is in terrible condition." And he said, no, I remember you from Padayatra, you know how to put nals on the bulls, you're very good with the animals, I want you to do the Goshala. And I said, "No, I want to do repair and maintenance." He said, "Okay." So 1-2 months passed by. Then in between we went to Germany, we came back, me and my wife, and nothing was happening. I was not really getting the service. And then Nandan left, And was living. He told me that you upstairs in the Goshala is a room. You take that room. So I had renovated that, and eventually I moved in there. And then Nandan left, and then Bhakti Rasamrita said, now Maharaj, that time Devamrita Prabhu said, there is no way out, now you do the Goshala. And then I did the Goshala. And
So, Prabhu, back in Germany, how did your family respond to your this taking up Krishna consciousness, which is something entirely different from what they know about? What was their reaction?
My father was an art director in an international advertising agency. My mother was they call it a contractor. She was a kind of a client supervising person, or making relationships with the clients. So they were very open-minded. And the idea was everyone does, jeder macht, was ihm Spaß macht.
Okay.
Everyone does what he likes to do. And because I was a punk and a drug addict before, so
it was a big improvement anyway.
The first thing, it looked like an improvement. And they didn't take it that serious. They were thinking, okay, now the guy is doing Hare Krishna for 3-4 months, 6 months. That is just a phase. Then when I went to India, they also didn't think much of it. But when I didn't come back, then my mother came one time.
To Vrindavan?
Yeah, we were Vrindavan, Varanasi, Jaipur. We traveled around. And she, at some point, she cornered me and said, so what, what's your plan? What are you going to do? I said, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm planning to do. She didn't expect that to come, and then she left, and then I think 7-8 years I never went back to Germany also. And then eventually I went back, and okay. My father came to India also 2-3 times. We went even up to Gangotri, and we tried to go to Gomok, and we went here and there. We visited every single beach in Goa without fail. I had that small car, and anyhow, but they cannot grasp. There's no way they cannot understand.
But they have accepted it, and right now, and they're okay.
Nothing else to do, right? Okay. After I got married and the kids were coming.
Yeah, that usually changes things.
They felt a little bit more comfortable.
At least you have your family, and
yeah.
That's nice. So, Prabhu, you have 3 children, right? What do you think makes for a good Krishna conscious upbringing for children?
Whoa. Well, good consciousness at the time of conception. That's what it says in the scripture, but that's also, I see the evolvement from 1, 2, and 3. So if you have a good consciousness, then definitely a good conscious soul will enter your Sangha. Children should never be forced. Krishna is not forcing us. If he wanted, he couldn't force us. He could close down the material world and take everyone back to Godhead. But somebody give an extreme example, that would be rape, isn't it? If I force you to love me, that would be rape.
Yeah.
Prabhupada even says something in that tune. So Krishna is not forcing us to love him. So we cannot force anybody to love Krishna. So I can see our first kid, we were a bit more fanatic, and over the next 2 we slowly became more relaxed. And then you can see that sometimes maybe 1 week the kid doesn't do much. But then once the sudden comes Saturday or Sunday, and it wakes up for Mangalati and chants lots of rounds and goes for a program and reads and plays a bhajan by itself. So I think we have to give a good example. That is, I think, because for the children, the whole world is a home. And their guru is their mother and their father.
True.
That is their role model. They know us better than we know ourselves, because they watch us the whole day for 15, 18 years. They just all day long they watch us, what we are doing.
They observe everything, every single thing.
Everything.
Yeah.
So if we do something wrong, they see, hey, look, he's saying one thing, he's doing another thing. Another great danger is to discuss politics at home. which is natural, you know. You come home from the temple and say, this guy did this, guy
Yeah,
did that,
yeah.
and he disturbed me like this, and the Swami did like that, and why is like this. That should be avoided under any cost.
At least till the child is grown
Yes.
up and
No,
yeah.
they don't need to hear that
Yes.
at any
Yes.
point. So, and then give a good example. We had mandatory chanting for the kids, 3-4 rounds. That wasn't a good program.
Acha. Didn't go well.
No, that it goes well while they're doing it, but it is like I don't know. It's like spinach juice is very healthy, but no kid will like spinach juice.
Yes.
So mommy will make you the spinach juice and you will drink that. And in the second mommy is not there, you will throw it in the the sink. So if you force the kids to chant, then it is something like spinach juice. It's like something they have to do, and obviously the child mind don't want to chant, isn't it? My first son, he always get itching when you make him chant japa. He starts itching everywhere. He has to leave the mala because it's itching. So things like that shows that actually you don't want to chant, and we think, hey, that's his little mind. We have to break the mind. We have to fix it, but it's not like that.
So what is the solution?
Krishna conscious coloring books, Krishna conscious toys, send them to the Sunday program where there's some Krishna conscious thing, and give a very good example. You can encourage, hey, why don't you chant, but it has to be very mild.
Encouragement, but no force.
No force, no.
Yeah.
No force. I very strongly feel that is not working.
And what about married life? How to keep Krishna in the center?
Krishna in the center. Well, see, if you want to keep Krishna in the center, then better don't get married. If I'm fully keeping Krishna
course.
in the center, then I have no interest in sense gratification, then I won't get married.
That's the best. That's, yeah, but
So-
not for everyone.
So now, if you talk about marriage life, the first and foremost important thing is to maintain the marriage for a long period of time, I would say.
Yes.
And I would have to say the first 3 years I didn't understand that whole marriage program at all, because I had been a brahmachari on Padayatra for 10 years, and my wife was also a rather fanatic follower. So it took us 3 years. Already we had a kid. We had been on Kumbh Mela and all sorts of things we did. But then when we came to Vrindavan, I would think then we had our own deities and we started cooking for ourselves. In Pandharpur we had the deities on the altar, on the main altar, and we were eating temple prasadam. So once we came here and started having Krishna puja in our house, and we started eating together, I had the feeling that was a very good program.
Having a home
Yes.
deities, home altar, home
Yes.
program.
And I do feel it is very important that we're talking about regulative principles and this and that, and once a month, I do have the feeling that there has to be a good bond, particularly when we're freshly married, between husband and wife, and that loving feeling that should be there, because later on, anyhow, the parties get somewhat tired of each other. You can't avoid that. So more you actually focus in the beginning. I was very lucky when I came from Padayatra and I moved to Pandharpur. Then I was kind of in the opposition party there, so they didn't want to give me any service. So I had almost 1 year where I really didn't have much to do. So I spent a lot of time with my wife and we traveled somewhere. So I think we do have it's very important to show emotions and have strong emotions for each other. Because how to describe that? Many times I see that husband and wives trying to show each other how much Krishna conscious they are.
Yeah. But one has to be practical in life and show affection.
Honest.
Honest, yeah.
Honesty is, I think, is a crucial point there, and not just chose a partner. I'm like a guru. And
Yeah.
in the mind something else is going on. Anyhow, it worked out okay. We got 3 kids. Even the boy in Germany who's not that much of a sadhaka. Now
Right now.
yeah,
But
yeah. Already when he was small, he was very cute kid. And
But usually this,
he could chant for hours together. When we came here in Vrindavan, he would get every day, evening for evening arti, and chant for, dance for 1 hour. And he always bring 100, 200, 300 rupees back. Because all the daily people see this beautiful white kid is dancing in ecstasy. They all give him some money.
but the sanskar is very strong. So in the future, it will
Yes. So
definitely.
even now, every Saturday, Sunday, he goes and plays music. He goes on the Harinam. And now he's thinking, the last conversation, he's thinking now maybe I should just move back in the temple and I will try for Mangalati. So, yes.
Yeah. So it's already coming back. Just
Yes.
yeah.
Number 2 was the pride of the father when he was 12 years old. He was playing on the mobile phone some game. He put the phone down. He looked very seriously at me. Papa, I don't want to waste my life playing on the phone and watching
Wow.
movies. Send me to the Gurukul.
At 12.
Yes.
Wow.
So I didn't believe him. I waited for 2-3 days. He says, you still want to go? Yes. I waited for another 1 week. Yes. I waited for another 2-3 weeks, and he became more and more determined. So we sent him there. He's still there.
In Mayapur, right? In Mayapur Gurukul. That's amazing. And Bhagavati?
Bhagavati is a very nice person. Very nice person.
Doing very nice in her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see when they grow up what they will do. But okay.
Definitely. So, Prabhu, what so far in your experience do you think is the most challenging thing when it comes to Krishna consciousness for all devotees in general? What do you think is the most challenging thing?
I had to always remember Krishna and never forget, I guess. It is always has something to do with the mind, isn't it? It's ultimately we all have fear that if we surrender, we will be missing something.
Yes. That's the reason why we can't surrender completely. Yeah.
I remember a very big change in my whole Krishna consciousness happened when we were in Vrindavan, and I always had fear of doing puja. And then when the deities came home, then sometimes I would do puja, and then I started to get a little taste for that. And one morning I was most probably bathing or dressing my deities, and I was whining like always, oh Krishna, why you not show me mercy? And then the voice came very clear that said, I'm right here. I'm right here. What do you want? The one who don't want to surrender is you. And I was shocked. I was always thinking it is somebody else, it is the circumstances. Krishna is not giving mercy, so it's a total change. Krishna came, he brought us to the movement, he gives the books, he came to brought us to Vrindavan, he gave me the deity form, he came to my home, he given everything. So the one who's not taking is us. It's nothing stops us from surrendering. Then we stop ourselves from surrendering, and the root cause of that is because we're fearing that we're going to miss something. So very difficult to say. Everyone has a different anatta. It's different for everyone, but basically it's a fear of surrender.
Yeah, which comes out in different ways.
In different ways. Yeah.
Also, Prabhu, what is your personal favorite limb of bhakti? Like Rupa Goswami gives 64 different limbs of bhakti, 5 are major, but still everybody has their own personal favorite. What do they like to
hear?
You like to hear?
Yeah, the class.
And what is your favorite book that you would like to read, or
No, I'm
more hearing?
Bhagavatam Rita
Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
and Bhagavatam itself.
Amazing. What's your future plans, Prabhu?
I don't know. I'm always good follower of astrology, so
Okay.
since many years astrologers will say when your Mercury Mahadas come, you will get upgraded and you will travel and you will preach. So
When is that coming?
Summer next year. So I even as a small child with my bicycle, I was going in faraway towns. I'd always been a traveler. When I left, after I got sick, until I joined, I was traveling around all over the place for years together without really having a fixed place. So, and then 10 years Padayatra. Even when I was in Pandharpur, 50-60% of the time I was out preaching or collecting.
So you look forward to that?
So since I'm here, I'm finally became stationary and I don't feel like going anywhere. I don't feel like leaving Vrindavan. So hey, let's see what
Krishna has in plan.
Krishna has in plan. Yeah, most probably I would say when I was a child there was a book and there was a story where all the mouses were very busy. A mouse colony. They were hoarding things for the winter, and one mouse was kind of lazy, and they were all chastising lazy mouse. And then when the winter was coming and all the mouses were very bored, then that mouse would speak about the summer and what it all. So it had assimilated, and it would tell stories, and all the mouse felt very much. So it's kind of a thing. And when I left Germany, I always felt like a deserteur. I left. I ran away to Vrindavan. I left the army. So I always feel maybe I have to pay back something because they're giving me that Bhagavatam. So somebody had to print that book in German, and somebody had to organize that person was standing there and giving me the book. So maybe like that.
So you feel that you have to contribute to the preaching movement?
Yeah, that maybe. I won't leave Vrindavan totally. Maybe
The base would be Vrindavan, but
yeah, like that maybe. Let's see, but I cannot really imagine that right now. It's a philosophical concept because astrologers have planted that. I don't see that right now. Last year, 2 years back, I bought a ticket to Germany, and I had arranged with somebody to borrow his car. He had 2 cars for 2 months. And I had made a plan to visit all the temples in Germany and go everywhere and make friends and preach and find out. And then COVID came. I lost my ticket and I never went. So, hey, man, I'm not sure.
maybe not, huh?
Maybe not.
So, bro, tell us a little bit, please, about your experience in Iskcon Vrindavan and what do you like the most about this temple and your experience here. Of course, this is where you joined, so definitely some past old memories are there. But still, why do you feel so attached to this place?
It's Vrindavan. I don't know what else to say. You're born here, so for you that is natural. I would say, I don't know what is the public, many maybe are not from Vrindavan. If you're a long time in Vrindavan, you get used to that place. And if you leave Vrindavan, it's like you take the fish out of the water. You give him a whatever, gulab jamun and a mango shake, whatever. He's not feeling satisfaction. So when you leave Vrindavan, the material world looks very uninteresting. And you feel like missing something. It's very difficult to describe. You just feel there is something missing. You come here, and it's not like I'm doing more sadhana. I would say rather opposite. When I go out of Vrindavan, my actual physical sadhana, I feel, is intensifying for whatever reason because I'm missing Vrindavan. But so I can't say. It is a very special place.
Home.
And I'm sure I've been here in past lifetimes.
You were mentioning that when you were a kid, you used to have dreams about, or you
feel that you
yes.
remember your past life, yeah.
So, did you have any memories about being related to spiritual life or anything like that?
No.
Just in general.
I think I was born in Orissa. I remember that.
In Orissa?
And I traveled also. most part of my last life I traveled. I'd been was to kind of a person, a little bit of an astrologer advisor in some kingdoms, but I moved. I do think I ended up here at the end.
In Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So definitely there is some past
Yeah.
life connection also. Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Just one last question before we leave, and that is that what message would you like to give the people who are watching the interview about how to improve their Krishna consciousness, how to be more enlivened and inspired?
The Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Srila Prabhupada gives that. He clearly said that you should come once a year to the holy Dham and you recharge your batteries. And I can see that it's kind of a barometer of people's spiritual health. I see devotees who are regularly coming here, and 16 years later I still see them coming here. And then I see people who haven't come for 8 years, for 10 years, and when I asked the other devotee what happened to friend X or friend B, and say, yeah, he's a little bit finished now. So
To recharge the
to
batteries.
recharge the battery, and also particularly if you come from other countries, to get that feel of Vedic culture, even see, when we were on Padayatra we had an elephant, so I have a little idea about elephants. So if you buy an elephant, I don't know what is now, this time an elephant was going for around 50,000 rupees. It was a lot of money 30 years ago. So if the elephant dies, he still goes for 50,000 rupees. Yeah, dead or alive, because then you take out the tusk.
Okay.
So the elephant can't work for you anymore, but still you get your money back.
Yeah.
So we can say in India is like the dead elephant. It's not fully Vedic culture in progress, but still it's very, very valuable lessons you can learn here, how things are going and how things are working. So I feel if devotees do not come to India and do not come to the Holy Dham for long stretches of time, they're a little bit detaching themselves from the root. It's not that you cannot be a devotee somewhere else. Ultimately, it's a question of the consciousness within the heart. But I do feel it is important to recharge the batteries.
So coming to Vrindavan is...
I think it's a strong part. It's a strong part. And ultimately, it is all about hearing and chanting. We have to hear, regularly hear. Maybe we read the book, but we have to hear. I feel we have to understand the philosophy. When everyone gets crisis, and everyone gets temptation, and everyone has fall downs, bigger or smaller. When that situation comes, to be well rooted in the philosophy will definitely help. To have a philosophical outlet into the Shastra, Shakshu, I feel that helps. It's not everyone can be a great philosopher, but to hear and to read, I think is a very important aspect of Krishna consciousness.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. And that's why I like to invite everyone to come and visit Vrindavan regularly. And then when you come here, you can also visit Prabhuji. He is always around.
Very welcome.
So thank you very much, Prabhu, once again for giving us time.
Thank you for giving me a chance to express myself.
It is always very wonderful to get to know devotees. Even for me personally, I mean, we know devotees in the temple, but it is always interesting to get to know their story. We don't necessarily know them that well or know their past and how they joined. It's always a big inspiration for everyone. And that's the whole idea of this interview series, to actually give an opportunity to everyone to get to know other devotees, their stories, and be inspired by what they have experienced and what they have learned through their journey in their Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, I remember that in the Back to Godhead they used to have how I became a devotee, something. I would always read that first.
It's always interesting, yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
And we would like to invite everyone to join us again next week for our next interview. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.